Morning team, it's me, your favourite, Jordan at the screen, and today I wish to talk to you about a case review from the NSPCC Case Review Repository. In this instance, I'm going to be talking to you about Child O. And the reason I'm going to be talking to you about this case is because recently I've been doing a lot of research, digging through the case reviews on the NSPCC website, and it's for a report I'm doing. And I came across this case, and as I was reading through it kind of got to me a little bit. So I decided I would, put it all together and make a video for you, because I think you should hear it. There's a lot to learn from this case. And so, well, that's what this video is. There's no more I can really say. Well, a case review, as you're probably wondering. What is a case review? Jordan, why you talk to us like as if we automatically know what a case review is on the NSPCC website? Like, what the hell? The NSPCC provides this definition, and it is that a serious case review, SCR, takes place after a child dies or is seriously injured and abuse or neglect is thought to be involved. It looks at lessons that can help prevent similar incidents from happening in the future. And that's what this case review is. And with this case, the timeline seems a bit off the way they've organised it. Perhaps there's a recording error, I don't know. But I've tried to rejig it so it looks good and present it to you today. And I'll first be reviewing the chronology of the case, what happened, and then looking at lessons learned, recommendations, etc., which have come out from this case. And a lot of what I'm about to recite to you... Ooh, just whacked my microphone, that's clever. A lot of what I'm about to say has been lifted straight from the case review. I've not done much in the way of editing, just... Some of it's been touched up here and then. I've reorganised paragraphs to try and fit the chronology. Anywho, let's get crack-a-lackin'. This case is about the death of a 22-month-old child called Child O at the hands of their mother, who also killed herself in summer of 2014. A post-mortem concluded that mother and child both died of carbon monoxide poisoning. The parents were separated, and mother and Child O had since moved to a number of areas around the country. A strong thread throughout the case review was their concerns that the significance of Child O's father's role was inadequately recognised and the allegations made by the mother were too easily accepted. As such, they felt there was an inherent bias towards him as a father. The impact on Child O's father and his family has been profound. Child O's father had not seen his child since he was 5 months old and had no knowledge of his whereabouts for the remainder of his life. The mother of Child O would not allow any contact with the father's family, meaning they never met their first grandchild and nephew. Child O's father was also faced with serious allegations from Child O's mother, which could have been life-changing, but these were ultimately identified by the police as unfounded. The parents of Child O met early in 2012 in Southampton. Neither at that point had any previous involvement with safeguarding services. The mother of Child O had at some point prior to the meeting changed her name, but this was not then known by the father. The mother's initial description to the father of her own family was that she had been brought up by her grandmother and had no contact with her parents for most of her life, which is now not known to be the case. The couple had only been in a relationship for a very short period when the mother told the father she was pregnant. This was not only an unplanned pregnancy, but unexpected, as the father states that he had been told by the mother that she was unable to conceive. As a warning sign for you. During her pregnancy, the mother attended at her GP's with a range of symptoms, and in June 2012, she was referred by her GP to IAPT, the Increased Access to Psychological Therapies, for stress-related problems. No record has been provided as to whether the mother accessed this service. Child O was born at North Hampshire Hospital in October 2012. Although the staff in the hospital noted that there was some evidence of maternal low mood, this was not highlighted as being unusual. However, the father's experience gave him greater cause for concern, including the mother's quite insistent refusal to allow anyone else to touch the baby. He was also concerned at the mother's insistence on discharging herself that day she had given birth, due to her dislike of hospitals, but this was contrary to medical advice. Child O became ill with congenital pneumonia, necessitating a return to hospital the following day and care in the neonatal unit for a number of days. Not an easy start, Poor thing. The mother reported having no family of her own and would not allow the father's family to visit newborn child O. The following day, the health visitor spoke to the GP because of her concerns that the father had visited her at her office, again very upset. He stated that he increasingly felt he did not really know the mother and that she had been dishonest about a number of things, including her relationship with her family. The mother became increasingly paranoid and overprotective of the child. A couple of days after the father's visit to the health visitor, the mother contacted the health visiting service to cancel her next appointment as she was planning to leave the area. This was subsequently flagged. A second health visitor met with the mother and noted that the mother's mood was low, but she had no concerns about her care of child O. The mother presented as distressed about the ending of the relationship with the father, but stated that he was not abusive or controlling, simply that he did not understand how she felt. The mother was recommended to see the GP and was prescribed a low-dose antidepressant, most likely 20 milligrams of fluoxetine, taken once in the morning. Not speaking from experience. Doctors seem to like throwing them out. Again, not speaking from experience. The following day, the father made a referral to Hampshire Children's Services, raising concerns about mother's mental health. Children's Services made inquiries with the first health visitor and recorded that mother had postnatal depression, had been abandoned by her father as a child, but had good family support in place. A duty social worker telephoned the mother, who stated she would be moving to Devon the next day and did not want the father to know her new address. The mother later phoned Devon Children's Services, unhappy they had become involved, in stating the father had been abusive to her. Just moving my microphone. A similar conversation took place with the Devon health visitor, who noted that the mother had fled domestic abuse, but also said that this had never been physical. A referral was made by the DHV to unspecified domestic violence services. I think we can guess who they were. Child O's mother again denied any postnatal depression and stated she was not on any medication. Nevertheless, information that the mother was prescribed with antidepressants whilst in Hampshire was recorded within the Devon Health visiting records. In mid-November, the mother phoned the police following what she described as a heated argument with the father, who then left the house. Police attended, spoke to both parents and recorded no offences. It was agreed that the parents would stay in separate rooms until mother was able to move out in the next couple of days. A dash risk assessment was undertaken and concluded there was a standard risk. The details were passed to victim support, and a child at risk form was sent to children's social care as a matter of routine. Several attempts at mediation were made, but they all failed due to the mother's unwillingness to be near the father. This was not because of any risk to the mother, but her own preference. Following the failed attempt at mediation, Child O's father made an application to the family court under private law to resolve the dispute between them. During this period, the mother contacted her GP, asking for Child O's name to be changed by removing the father's surname. It would appear that this was actioned by the GP, which they're not supposed to do. GPs are not meant to be doing that. Anyway, whilst living in Devon, Child O's mother contacted the police on 3 occasions with allegations about the father. On the first occasion, she stated that he had called her, pretending to be from a doctor's surgery, in order to obtain information. She also said he had contacted the surgery claiming to be from the hospital. There was no evidence to support this allegation. This was recorded by the police as a non-crime domestic incident and a dash assessment undertaken, which identified it as standard risk. On the second occasion, she reported receiving an abusive letter from his parents. The police officer did review the letter, but did not consider the letter to be threatening or offensive, and again recorded this as a non-crime domestic incident on the basis of what the mother had told them. Lastly, in April 2013, the mother reported that during a contact meeting the father had made a threat to her life and had also sent her a sympathy card. Again, this was recorded as a non-crime domestic incident, but given that the mother appeared to be frightened, the dash risk assessment on this occasion was recorded as medium. Now remember this, because I'll refer back to it later in the video. The police officer spoke to the father, who was noted to be polite and understanding, but he denied the allegations. The father reported to this review, the case review, that the officer had told him he had not actually seen the sympathy card, and so thus felt frustrated at what therefore appeared to him to be an unquestioning acceptance of the mother's allegations. And there's reason for that, because that's what they do. The police accept allegations without question. After all, listen and believe, believe the victim, and that is their policy. They're told to give victim support to the woman. In fact, it doesn't matter who makes a phone call of domestic violence. Even if it's the husband saying, my wife's beating the crap out of me, they're still told to give her the victim support. Fucking love it. And so what this incident here tells us is that, in other words, if she seems upset, he's guilty, irrespective of evidence, whether you can find it or not. And I wonder how many of my viewers have been in this circumstance. How many quite intimately know what this feels like. I continue. In late summer of 2013, the father applied to the Family Proceedings Court in Torquay under private law proceedings. He had not had any contact with Child O since March 2013. The first family court hearing was in late September 2013. Kafkas had forwarded the outcome of their safeguarding checks to the court. The father attended the hearing, but the mother did not. Of course she was not faced with any repercussions. Why would she? Whereas if the father hadn't turned up, you can bet all hell would have come to him. In fact, the mother did not attend any of the subsequent hearings at the family court. Why? They ain't got no power. Actually, they have plenty of power, they just refuse to fucking use it. I wonder who might be telling them to do that. Anyway, I am digressing. At the end of October 2013, Child O's father contacted Devon police to report that Child O and mother were missing. This followed the return of court papers sent to the mother, which had been marked that she was no longer at the address. The father had also been concerned as a result of previous comments that the mother had made suggesting she might move to Spain. International child abduction. Not a great situation to be in. During the autumn, the mother missed appointments with the health visitor, including taking Child O for their first year assessment in November of 2013. The police immediately initiated a missing person inquiry in relation to Child O and mother, assessing the case as medium risk. They spoke to the maternal grandfather, who said he had not seen his daughter and grandchild for 2 months since they moved to Spain, but did not provide an email address. The mother subsequently contacted them to state that she and the child were safe and well, but she refused to tell them where they were living. After all, why the fuck would she ever need to? Mother knows best, am I right? Yeah. I'm joking. Oh, that was a joke. Don't actually take that seriously. In early December, Devon police identified that Child O and mother were living at an address in Norfolk. Contact was made by Devon with Norfolk police, who agreed to visit in order to undertake a safe and well check, which took place first thing the following morning. 2 officers attended. They saw both Child O and mother and concluded that there were no immediate concerns regarding Child O's welfare. Child O was described as clean, cheerful and engaging, and the home environment was immaculate. Child O's mother was very unhappy about having been traced and was not willing to provide any details in order for a risk assessment to be undertaken, nor to provide a contact phone number. She was advised that she should inform maternal grandfather or her solicitor if she intended to leave the country, rather than putting out an all-ports warning or anything, because it's not like this is a criminal offence to take the child out of the country without the other parent's express permission. You can't just run off with the child. Later that day, maternal grandfather contacted Devon and Cornwall police asking for a further visit from the police in Norfolk, as mother wished to make a statement regarding a history of sexual and physical abuse and attempts to kill. What an odd coincidence. The mother made serious allegations of domestic violence and rape against the father. She also alleged that he had in the past told her of a sexual relationship with a young person, which, because of the nature of his employment, would need to be investigated by the local authority in Southampton. The mother also said that she was in fear of her life, as the father had threatened to kill her if she took Child O from him. Mother O was not willing to make a formal statement in relation to any of the allegations. And full disclosure, it does say in the case review, I've not actually included it in my script, funny enough, but all those allegations as well were found to be false. The investigations into those allegations actually did not take place until after the deaths of the mother and the child. which is actually what I've got written here. The mother and child O left this address sometime in January 2014 and moved to a house owned by the father's family in Lancashire. On 13th August 2014, child O and mother were found in the garage of the house in Lancashire. They had died of carbon monoxide poisoning. And in fact, the investigations into those allegations earlier weren't even started until after their death. The bureaucracy is bollocks. So that should give you a nice taste of how bad that case was. So what lessons are to be learned, what overarching themes are there, etc., etc. What can we extract from this case? Well, let's start with the role of the father. And the role that the father was able to play in his child's life was seriously manipulated by the mother, who, we can see with hindsight, worked over an extended period to exclude him from child O's life. That she was able to do this so effectively appears to some degree to have been unwittingly supported by professional assumptions and attitudes about the father's role, and it appears that her actions were rarely actively challenged. Serious case reviews and research more widely have also highlighted the failure to recognise that fathers can bring positive resources to their children's lives. Child O's separation from their father was fundamentally a result of the actions of their mother and maternal grandfather. However, what child O's experience again reflects is the often subtle mindset within health and social care, which can view the mother, who is generally the day-to-day carer, as having more rights and significance in the child's life, and involvement with the father is optional or undesirable. As such, it could again be argued that the mother's perspective effectively determined the actions of professionals. The mother was absent and yet completely in control up until the final weeks of child O's life. Again, I dare say many of my readers, viewers, listeners, etc. may quite intimately understand this sort of circumstance. Child O's mother made a number of allegations of domestic abuse to a range of services, initially asserting that there were no issues of domestic abuse, later describing low-level conflict and emotional abuse, and stating that the abuse was never physical, but developing over time into very serious allegations. The evidence in this case is that professionals generally worked to establish practice guidelines regarding listening to, respecting, recording and offering support when approached by the mother. Health services routinely asked the mother about domestic abuse and followed up any information the mother supplied which might suggest cause for concern. Advice and information was provided to the mother about support services. Essentially, listen and believe every step of the fucking way. And so, for the family of the father, the impression was given, whether or not it reflected what professionals actually thought, that the father had already been judged. What resulted was a perception of bias, in the words of child O's paternal grandmother. To quote, "They put him in this box. He was a man. He had to be violent. And he was none of these things." Although the father's distress at being contacted by the police about false allegations is entirely understandable, reasonable judgments were made about the absence of criminal offences, and no action was taken other than giving words of advice. Giving words of advice. How do you give words of advice to a guy who's just received a false allegation? Don't keep not breaking the law. Don't keep not beating up your partner or ex-partner. Don't keep doing, like, how do you even pass that? I don't know. And this, understandably, this BS situation, added to the father's sense of frustration. Nevertheless, it is difficult to avoid the conclusion that services had not given serious consideration to the possibility that the allegations might be malicious, and therefore whether this might lead them to take different actions or consider the potential implications for child O. Illustrative examples include the language of agency records effectively shifts from allegation to presumed fact, such as recordings that the mother had fled domestic abuse. The use of the words disclosures rather than allegations in many records, which subtly reflects an acceptance of what the service has been told. Decisions by health and social care services not to pass on information about child O in response to the mother's wishes. One particular example of the way current systems to assess domestic abuse can have unintended consequences and could impact unhelpfully on professionals' judgment is the use of risk assessment tools. Police officers appropriately used the CADA-RIC, CAADA-DASH-RIC. I dare say professionals who may or may not watch this video will know what that means. And it is a tool which is used nationally to identify risk in relation to domestic abuse. The risk factors that form the basis of the assessment are statistically evidentially sound. However, what the assessment does not explicitly recognize is that the actual information provided to the assessor may not itself be based on objective evidence. On one occasion, the risk assessment identified 9 high-risk factors, moving the risk assessment from standard to medium risk. Remember how I said earlier in the video, I told you to remember? However, when it got raised to medium risk, I think April 2013, I think it was. However, each one of these risk factors, all of them, was totally reliant on self-reporting by the mother and therefore open to manipulation. Yes, the system is perfectly fine. It just, relies entirely upon the person who's giving all the allegations, because it's not like they'd ever fucking lie. And if they say they're suffering a load of shit, then they're clearly medium to high risk. But this is where it gets good. Honestly. This review and others have highlighted the requirement for this agency to consider the current levels of knowledge and understanding among frontline staff, including supervisors, around the DASH risk assessment process. Women's Aid has been commissioned to carry out a gap analysis in respect of training requirements. Findings from this work will inform the development and commissioning of DASH training for police officers. That's completely right. You know how the system is fucked, and these women can come in and lie about domestic abuse, like in this case, and get fathers kicked out their fucking homes and away from their kids. Yeah, let's just bring in the one fucking organisation that totally supports this and get them to prevent this from ever happening. Also, remember how earlier in the video, how this the mother had been referred to, was it undisclosed or unknown domestic violence services? I think we can guess which domestic violence service that was. I mean, Women's Aid is the very fucking organisation that came out of that 19 child homicides report, which essentially says if a father is so much as accused of domestic abuse, he wants to kill his children. And then the following year they came out saying, you don't actually have to look into whether allegations are true or not, they're just prevalent. The whatever the fucking name of the report was, it came out a year later. I did a article on it for Backbench. It's got a stupid name, allegations of domestic abuse in the family court setting, I think it was called. Which basically, said, all these allegations are prevalent, we need to do more work about them. By the way, we didn't check to see if these allegations are true, because why would we? Because women never lie about domestic abuse allegations. And these are the fucking people they brought in to train the officers to not get caught out by false allegations of domestic abuse. I told you it gets good, didn't I? And I didn't lie. I did not lie to you. I never lie to you, my beautiful, loving audience. Oh, fuck's sake. Anyway, I continue. I'm on page 4 out of 5. I'm nearly there. Moving away from DV, but staying in the same vein as a father's role in his child's life, we see other concerns, because it gets better. It gets better. At other points in Child O's life, there is some evidence that processes and routine practice tended to assume that the mother, who had immediate care of Child O, was the parent. Examples of this include the acceptance by the GP of the mother's decision to remove the father's surname from Child O's surname. A parent can only change a child's name legally with the agreement of everyone with parental responsibility or with a court order, and the father had parental responsibility. The implications of removing the father's name did not appear to be recognized, and there is no evidence that this was questioned or challenged. After the move to Devon, there is no evidence of attempts being made by the Health Visiting Service to actively contact or involve the father. The need for training and support of health visitors in this regard has been identified nationally as an area for development. Evidence from research supports the view that improvements to practice can be achieved. Well, no fucking shit. Also in February, 2014, in response to a solicitor's letter, the GP surgery were only willing to confirm that child O was registered with them and the date they had seen the child, as the mother had requested that no information should be given about the child to child O's father. Child O's father had parental responsibility, and this had been confirmed by the health visitor, which raises a question as to why he was not considered to be entitled to full information about his child. I'll explain to you why. Something called the 1989 Children's Act, Brenda Hale's beautiful creation, the woman who's now the president of the Supreme Court. It's section 1, paragraph 1, subparagraph 4, I think it is. I can't quite remember the exact whereabouts it is, but basically it says, I'm not going to get it verbatim, but the assumption that a father is a natural guardian of his child is now abolished. So yeah, sure, you're the father, but you don't really count, is what it says. This is how it manifests. Shit like this. Shit like fucking this. The father felt that he and his family were frequently not taken seriously enough by professionals, and believes this was a result of his role as a father. In particular, he described a poor experience of Kafka's involvement. He did not feel listened to or properly consulted. For example, he specifically told the children's guardian that mother was not at the address in Devon, and was highly frustrated that letters continued to be sent to this address, which, it appears, was the only address held by the court, and therefore by Kafka at that time. He felt that the children's guardian was at times dismissive of his concerns, and that he was given minimal opportunity to speak to the officer either before or during court hearings, including not receiving responses to his phone messages. The children's guardian had been interviewed by Kafka as part of this review, and believes was sympathetic to the situation, and was clear with the father about their role. Sure they were. Oh, by the way, Kafka refused to sign off on this case review when it was published. Refused. And this is the first time that's ever happened, where the Lancashire Serious Case Review Board haven't been able to get all parties involved to sign off on it. First time it's ever happened. And as we talk a little bit more about Kafka, you'll see why they refused to sign off, because this report is a little bit critical of them, which is also why Kafka is able to turn around and say no report in their library is ever critical of them, because they just don't accept them. It's not like they were defined as, what's the phrase? Not fit for purpose, I believe the UK Parliament defined them as. And the degree of this mismatch that I just mentioned about between the father and what Kafka said is striking, according to this case review, but ultimately is not something about which this report can make a judgment. And they say that, but they continue by explaining a bit more about what Kafka is up to. What is undisputed is that the children's guardian made a decision not to interview the father while undertaking the Section 7 report for the court, and it is evident that this has impacted significantly, not least on the perception of fairness, irrespective of the rationale. It cannot be concluded that if there had been a meeting with the father, it would have changed the outcome for child O, but it might have shifted the perception of the case, and, for example, led to a stronger advice to the court about the need for an urgent response. So hypothetically, could have helped save the child's life, perhaps. I'm inclined to believe that yes, it would have definitely helped towards saving. But I think this case review has to be a bit impartial. I don't know. Kafka have acknowledged that a more cautious approach would have been to meet the father early in the process. No fucking shit. Kafka's practice standards do not define whether or how parties should be interviewed. This is a matter for professional judgment. That backbencher article I mentioned earlier, this is actually something I picked up on, where Women's Aid were able to say, 62% of cases feature allegations of domestic abuse. This means domestic abuse is prevalent. So, well, actually, the Kafka's case files are actually recorded subjectively, such that if the Kafka's guardian or officer thinks there's domestic abuse, for whatever reason, they can put it in there. I mean, yeah, they can use police records, they can use, referrals to services and, what the GP says and actual medical records, or they can just, for themselves, think, yeah, it seems like there's domestic abuse in here. I mean, it's up to them. And that's actually something I pulled up, and here it is. That's Kafka, that's actually by design. That Kafka can arbitrarily, almost, define for themselves what to do and how to go about doing it. There just seems to be... It's shit. But I'm running off script. I'm going to go back to my script. The Kafkas report identifies that the children's guardian had developed a mindset about Child O's case as one of a mother not seeking to be found, as she did not want her child to have a relationship with the father. And because, yeah, that's something that, you should fucking support, obviously. It concludes that she had not been robust enough in her planning. Nice, Kafkas, nice. I'm glad to see that you're taking a serious view of this issue. Fucking dickheads. In response to questions about whether there might be anything further to learn about the organisation's approach to working with fathers, Kafkas has provided information from 2 national audits of practice, April 2013 and November 2014, and the Ofsted National Inspection, April 2014. This latter report concluded that Kafkas consistently worked well with families to ensure children are safe. It's the first time I think I've ever heard that. I've never heard anything else like that. That's just anything else that's in remotely the same vein. Everything else has just always been completely fucking different, and I mean polar fucking opposite. And this is for both men and women. Women who are saying, "Oh, abusive dads were able to violate the system," and then dads saying abusive mothers were able to violate the system. Anyway, I'm slightly bewildered, and I know this is in here. I knew that this was coming up, but still, every fucking time I read it, it just gets me. Anyway, here's what the case review has to say. None of these audits identified poor practice in relation to working with fathers, and Kafkas, as a result, feels satisfied that attitudes to fathers are not a cause of concern within their practice nationally. This review has therefore sought further information about the specific context in which the children's guardian was working, in order to better understand how such practice decisions are made. Doing a bit of digging, let's see what they say. However, the information provided was unable to answer the key question as to why the children's guardian adopted a particular approach. On this basis, the review cannot share Kafkas' confidence that it can exclude the possibility that an individual or cultural response to fathers' roles may have impacted on the management of this case. Reading through the lines, that basically says, yeah, fuck you, Kafkas. Now we can see definitely why they refused to sign off on this report. The role of fathers is an all too familiar issue in serious case reviews, frequently in relation to fathers who seem to be invisible or maybe threatening or dangerous. SCRs and more research more widely have highlighted the failure to recognise that fathers can bring positive resources to their children's lives. Child O's separation from their father was fundamentally a result of the actions of their mother and maternal grandfather. However, what Child O's experience again reflects is that the often subtle mindset within health and social care, which can view the mother, who is generally the day-to-day carer, as having more rights and significance in the child's life, and involvement with the father as optional or undesirable. And again, I'm pretty sure many of my viewers, readers, and listeners have experienced this firsthand, the whole "you're a dad, you don't count" kind of mentality. There are indeed plenty more recommendations in this case review. I could continue reading through them all, but I shan't. I don't want to think about how long this video is going to come out to be. So instead I shall link below in the box to the case review or to the source. I'll probably just put a link to the script and it'll be in there if you want to go through it. And also, if you want to have a really depressing and shitty weekend, or just a really shitty afternoon and evening sort of period, just go through the case reviews on the NSPCC library. Because as I said earlier, I've been doing that for a report. And yeah, it's depressing as shit. Just some of the shit. I mean, you read this, you think, like, the case, like how every step of the way the father's trying to be involved in his child's life, and clearly the mother's psycho, running off with the child, changing addresses, all these unsubstantiated allegations, and is just completely supported by the system. Doesn't even need to bother turning up to the family courts. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Have a lovely day, life, all that sort of thing. Hopefully I've not depressed you all too much. I'm going to go off and, I don't know, do something. Well, toodle pip. Wait, no, actually, I'm going to stop doing those faces since I've learned about the fear grimace. I need to find something else, some other way of ending my videos. But the whole thing, it's a fear grimace, and since I've learned what a fear grimace is, I'm going to stop doing them. Anyway, that's the end of my video. Toodle pip, good night.